Hello, wild ones. This is Dark Moon Chiron, the little corner of the universe where together we illuminate the secrets of your dreams, your subconscious, and your forgotten self. This is a storytelling dream interpretation podcast, and I'm your guide, Megan Rose McMullen, the Wild Dream Sorceress. This podcast is structured in 3 parts. Beginning the dream journey, I share the story of a sleeper's adventure. Whether the dream is my own or one that was submitted, I speak in first person for anonymity because let's face it, sometimes our dreams can be quite wild. Once we follow the dreamer's quest entirely, we decipher each piece of the labyrinth, unlocking new levels of consciousness along the way. Then the enchanted tale ends with an intuitive reading on the inner workings of the hero's psyche, hopefully leaving you, the listeners, with a new understanding of the innate magic and power that lies inside the hidden world within each of us. Allow the story to transform your ordinary waking lives into your wildest dreams. Or at the very least, strap in and enjoy this imaginary ride. Are you ready to get wild? Part 1: Tricksters from Hell. Standing in the middle of a deserted street, I can see the blacktop is freshly paved. There's a dimness to the daylight, similar to the moments before a storm rolls in. I notice that I'm in full military gear as I check my gun on my hip holster for the 100th time. Nothing has changed from the last time I did it. My entire platoon stands outside a restaurant waiting for the orders of our commanding officers. Tents for outside seating line the road. I stop myself from checking again. A young recruit whose height makes his gear look like it's swallowing him whole makes what he thinks is a joke. "You need me to show you how to hold and fire your weapon, woman?" He laughs, trying to make himself bigger than to the rest of the men in our unit. No one hears his remark. Everyone is restless. I squint at him, trying to decide what I should do to him. Then I laugh, calling over the other officer with a nod of my head. "Officer, did you hear what this kid said?" He shakes his head at me and stares at the private. He said, and I used my hands to quote his remark, "You need me to show you how to hold and fire your weapon, woman?" I paused to make him uncomfortable. "Kid, I've been firing my weapon longer than you've been alive. Thanks for the offer, but I think I'm good." I fight the urge to check my weapon again by bopping in the side of the head with the mostly friendly slap. The group laughs at him. Shame spreads across his face, and he looks down. The radio static makes us all straighten up. It's time to go. We are on our way to hell itself. We tactically move through the vacant building. A portal has opened up in the basement of the restaurant, and it's our job to close it. I remind everyone as I lead them down the steps through the gray tunnels. Remember, this place is full of tricksters. No one go off alone. Shadows without physical forms dance and laugh across the walls, trying to provoke us. One of my privates takes off running towards the bathroom. I shout towards her, "Wait!" I signal for the orders for the other men to keep moving towards the gates. Red lights flash, a warning, casting shadows on the wall. The light distorts everything like funhouse mirrors. I followed the private into the bathroom, thinking she must have fallen ill. The sulfur is sickening, the heat is rising, and the pressure is increasing. Not a great combo for anyone, especially newbies. Before I enter, the shadows of people and their indistinct chatter play loudly inside the ladies' bathroom, as if there's a large crowd waiting to use the stalls. Once inside, no one is there, and I realize it's all just an illusion. My private never ran in. I roll my eyes at my stupidity for falling for it, especially when I just specifically told my team to be alert for tricksters. When I walk out the door I came in, I end up in a different location, like a nightmare labyrinth. The heat and putrid smells continue to rise up from all directions. The fear tries to creep up my spine. I swallow hard and press on. I miraculously find my way to the gates. The shadows being still dance across the steel-colored corridors. My men haven't gone anywhere close to that entrance. They stand in confusion and fear, unsure of what to do next. It's like they've forgotten their orders and mission. looking at them all, I can't help but feel like we're all in line for amusement. We're all in line for amusement ride. I move closer to the doors. The hair on the back of my neck prickles. Hatred, fear, jealousy, resentment bubble up through the cracks. Just as I reach the entry, an invisible hand closes around my throat, blocking my airways. I shoot out of bed, wide awake. Do you love dreams like I love dreams? Probably not, because I'm like obsessed with dreams, but maybe you are. I've been a dreamer my whole life, and I'm just really excited about this because I freaking love this podcast. I love it. I love dreams. All dreams make me I geek out about them. I don't know if you know this about me, but I do. I am constantly thinking about dreams, talking about dreams. I think more people need to use their dreams as tools for transformation. It is truly one of my favorite things to talk about. But I'm even more excited about this. So we are now opening it up to podcast readings. That's right. You can get your dream on this podcast. What? Say what? Yeah, you can down in the show notes or in the description, you will find a link and you can get a podcast reading. You can send it in, get your reading, get it on here. You can mark if you want it anonymous or not. I generally like to keep them anonymous because sometimes dreams can get really wild and weird and cringy. And also we can talk about things that are really uncomfortable because we're talking about the shadow, we're talking about the collective shadow and the unconscious shadow and the like murky stuff that like feels a lot like shame and judgment, and it can get weird sometimes. So I like to keep them anonymous so that people don't know anything about your dreams. And that way people don't know it's from you. But I think it's really important that people hear the types of dreams that we have because they do mean things, and these dreams can help us transform our lives. We can literally take what we learn in our dreams and bring it to the waking life. We can build a life of our wildest dreams if we know how to use the tools. So podcast readings are super awesome for that because you can submit your dreams. Not only are you helping other people, because every time I read a dream, not only are we learning to dissect them and analyze them, but you're seeing how it all comes together in a beautiful reading. And so why not help other people with your dreams while you're helping yourself? Duh, seems like a duh kind of answer, but we got it. The podcast readings. What I want to stress though is that you do have to sign a waiver when you buy the podcast readings because I will be using it as my content, and so you have to sign the waiver. Otherwise, so make sure you read that waiver and sign it if that's something that's interested in you, because I'm really excited about this, and so I'm really excited to see what new dreams come in for the next couple for the rest of the season. Part 2. All right, so break it down. Okay, so we've got the deserted street. I think it's kind of interesting that they point out, by the way, I found a couple new words: phenomenal, intriguing, instead of just saying interesting. So I think that it should be pointed out that the pavement is freshly paved. So you got like the I'm not sure if you guys ever have that experience when you go down like a freshly paved blacktop road. There's like everything around it kind of stands out brighter because it's like just so smooth and like dark, the lighting is I would say that, okay, talking about the sections first, obviously, this is an extraordinary dream. The sleeper dreamer isn't aware of it being a dream, at least not from this, the information. There's no awareness of it being a dream. I'd say there are three parts. So you have the outside the restaurant, the walking into the restaurant, and the bathroom area, and then at the gates of hell. The first part is dimly lit, kind of has like a eerie dimness to it because it's mentions like moments before a storm rolls in, the shifting of that light. Not bright, but also not too dark. It seems to be daytime. Then you go into the second scene. It is gray. The gray corridors, the gray walls, and then you have the red flashing light, but for the most part, it's like gray. There's not a lot of color. And then when you get to the corridors, you're still in the gray lighting. There's shadows on the wall. So in order to see shadows, you have to have some kind of light. Let's see. So we got the lighting. There's like a nervousness, like feeling wise, like they're all in military gear. They're waiting. There's order. There's a bunch of them. There's crowd. Generally, it feels like there's a bunch of masculine. The new recruit says something about, her being the dreamer being a woman. So it makes it feel like, which is generally how it is, right? So the majority is masculine energy while the dreamer is the feminine energy. Again, there's restlessness, the 100th time of checking it, the kind of restlessness of everyone, which is kind of standing around waiting. They're outside a restaurant. So the portal opened up in a restaurant, which I think is kind of interesting, intriguing. And I think it's intriguing and that the new recruit's height is kind of mentioned and how the suit is like kind of swallowing him whole. There's like this like Napoleon syndrome, I guess you would call, or like complex Napoleon contrast, like small stature, but like have to like make this macho move to claim like kind of toxic masculinity. And then like the remark, like instead of like being angry, there's no anger. It feels like there's no anger. There's just like I understand, like the dreamer understands, like I laugh and I call over the other officer, kind of do a little shame, kind of put the private into his place, by like telling other people what he said. And also too, like once they're going into the building, the dreamer is the one that's directing them, right? So that it's the head of like, and so for the private to kind of disrespect command like that generally would be, provoking anger or something, but instead the dreamer is just like, to get this kid, like, come on, like, are you kidding me? And then they kind of all laugh because they understand that like that's the kind of like joke that's made when you're insecure. And it's kind of like this, like, you're young, you're stupid, you're nervous, you're trying to like make up for it, you don't know who you're talking to. Yeah, again, there's like a point to the nervousness, right? Like I fight the urge to like check my weapon again, so I just like bop him on the side of the head. Again, it's like mostly friendly. Of course, like you could tell, like there's probably like a part of the dreamer that's like frustrated that this is like a comment that's made, but like it's also like normal. And so like it's mostly friendly. There's probably a little bit of irritation there, but like there's like a deeper understanding of the kid who's trying to like make himself bigger because of the situation that he's in. And we finally find out that it's hell, like the portal to hell has opened up. They're moving through there's like tactical movement. The restaurant is vacant. Also, the street is deserted. Like there's nobody around. Like it's been evacuated. Then they go down the tunnels, and the big point of the like the whole dream is that, remember, there's tricksters in hell. Like don't fall for the like bullshit of these tricksters that are trying to like provoke us and like separate us and take us, and just as that happens, a private runs to the bathroom. The dreamer follows them, signaling to the men to keep going, which is exactly what the dreamer just told the group not to do. But of course, you can't leave no man left behind. And so this private is also a girl, female woman. So that it takes off running to the bathroom. The dreamer is like, it's probably, it's like, it's sulfur, the smell, it's hot, there's so much pressure, it's scary, it's not a good combination. So it's understandable that the private run off to the bathroom, because she's a newbie. And once in, there's like this, like you can see the shadows like underneath the door and in the stall. And like when you open up, the dreamer opens up the door to the ladies' room. That's when she realizes like it's just the tricksters. It's just the shadows. There's not anything there, even though there's like a loud talking in the bathroom. The private actually never ran off. It was a shadow, an illusion. And she's like feeling stupid because she just literally warned everybody to not fall off. Again, there's like the common theme of like grayness, like the gray tunnels. There is a warning light, red, like the only color that you really distinct. There's like a black top, a dimness, gray, dull, dim, except for this warning light that kind of like makes things distorted. So it's kind of like a nightmare. So I might even say that this might be an extraordinary dream that might also kind of be a nightmare, but it almost feels like there isn't too much fear. There's not a lot of strong emotions. There's just a little bit of nervousness rather than a full-on fear nightmare. Especially with like the kind of childish humor, like playfully slapping a kid on like in the head, like the restlessness, but there's no real powerful, intense emotions coming through. Let's see. When the dreamer walks out of the bathroom and into it, it's in a different location. And it's one of those things, that's when like a little bit of fear starts to bubble up, but not totally. It doesn't totally, it tries to creep in. And that's like when she's like, this is a nightmare labyrinth. There's so much tricksters like this. It's all like there's heat, there's a smell. Of course, this can be exactly being split up is exactly what the dreamer didn't want to happen. So it ends up happening. The dreamer finds their way to the gate. The shadows are still, but then the dreamer comes on the men, and they're just kind of standing around, confused, kind of lost, like almost, if to me it kind of feels like a herd of sheep that got like scared and then like paused and like just kind of like forgot. Like it's almost like it feels like there's like maybe a forgetfulness, a veil that kind of might have like confused them, and so they're all just kind of like sheep just hanging out, like standing around at this gate, not really knowing what to do, kind of talking, chattering, but not really doing anything. Like they've forgotten their orders, their mission. They're kind of confused. They're also a little bit afraid, but they're not really moving forward. And then the dreamer has this like internal thought, like it feels like they're like almost being herded into the gates, but like almost amusement park ride. Like she says that a couple times, a fun house mirror, labyrinth, which is like maze. It can be like, that kind of thing. Amusement ride. Then to get into the gates of hell, they move forward. And then this is where like the strong emotions start coming: hatred, fear, jealousy, resentment bubble up through the cracks. And then like an invisible hand closes around the throat, blocking my airway. And then the dreamer wakes up in a fit of fear. I think that that's awesome. Intriguing. Marvelous. This is a good dream. Like, I honestly don't think that it feels like a nightmare. It feels more like it kind of has like a creepy vibe to it, but like there isn't, to me, it doesn't have any strong emotions till the very, very end. It's just kind of a restlessness, a little frustration. Just the emotions aren't too powerful. They're just like a little bit there. Not too much, not too serious. So part 3, the interpretation. Okay, so in the first part, we have the collective, right? The collective unconscious. The dreamer is a woman, and the new recruit or the young recruit is masculine. And all of the platoon is masculine, has masculine feel. It's the opposite. And there's a toxic masculinity. One, this young recruit who's being swallowed up whole in a very tense swallowed up whole by his uniforms in this very intense situation. It might even be the first time that this recruit is like going on a mission. He's kind of nervous, probably feeling a little insecure, says this like sexist joke to make himself bigger. This is kind of like a normal, there's a normalcy to it, which is like right there in the collective conscious. It's like a normal thing to like have these conversations or say these comments or whatever. And the dreamer doesn't respond in like a rage-filled way, but in a like, oh, this happens all the time. Like this is like normal. And even though something is normal, it doesn't make it right, right? And as retaliation, instead of like getting up in arms about this comment, the dreamer just like points to another person, makes him like, puts him in his place in a way, like in a very, I think, kind of kind way, like just like mocking him a little, laughing at him, making other group of men like kind of shake their heads, which, you know, I'm not surprised that the dreamer as a feminine energy would feel like this, especially if the dreamer is like it's used to being in a male dominated role where they're the only feminine energy. So it might be like the dreamer, I would say, probably has a lot of, you know, familiarity, I don't know, familiarness. I can't even think of that word. Familiarity, there you go, with being in situations or roles where the genders are kind of imbalanced, where feminine energy is very rare. I would definitely say that that's this energy. But I think this collective energy is showing that like hopefully this person has the collective is definitely toxic masculinity that's represented by this like new recruit who's like an insecure male who is trying to make a joke about sexism to get like bigger about himself. And I would also say that to this, it shows that the dreamer has like is coming into confidence within their like knowing, because instead of like being enraged by the way that this new recruit is, it's almost brushed off like this isn't worth my time. Like did you hear this, kid? Like, seriously? And the remark isn't even like full of anger or resentment. It's like, just like, thanks for the offer. No, I'm good. And then like a friendly-ish bop in the head. Like, it's almost like, this is not like worth my time. Like, we have bigger fish to fry, right? Like, we're above the portal from hell, and like we're going to hell itself. So like, this is stupid. Like, this isn't worth my time. And there's like shame on his face too. And this is also, I think too, there's like the kid is like immaturity. There's like an immaturity to him and a collective. And I feel like that's kind of like what happens is like, this toxic masculinity is a immaturity that needs to be grown out of men, you know, like that saying that women mature faster than females, like women are, you know, excuse me, are, what's the word? Women are more mature than men, and they like 3 years. Like, men have to be 3 years older than a woman to like be the same maturity or something like that, which is like, it's silly. It's a bias. It's part of the patriarchy. It's really, that's just silly, because women are expected to, women, feminine energy are expected to do more and be aware more and take responsibility more. That boys will be boys kind of lets them off the hook of this like growing. And so I feel like the boy in the private, this new recruit, is really representing of the collective. And, you know, as you mature, like, that hopefully will get out of there. But really, you know, confident women in their queendom or feminine energy don't really have to like tolerate this, first and foremost. And like, it's just it's insecurity in boys, like a immature boy viewpoint, right? It's definitely that. And it sucks that women have to be, you know, the bigger person. But I would say that this attests to like, this dreamer is growing in their confidence and in their knowing that they're worthy, and and then like, and not in just like the confidence, but just like knowing that they're like capable. I feel like that's that, like, this thing that would set most people off is just like, I'm not even going to deal with this. Like, this is just like, I'm going to shame you a little bit so you know that this is inappropriate, but I'm not going to like engage much further than this, because it's not worth my time and energy, because I am steadfast in what I'm doing. And there's like more important things, like hell, the gates of hell are, you know, opening up. And I think that this is like kind of what this first scene is. They tactically move through the vacant building. So I think that this is representing like a new area. I would say that this basement, you know, when you go down, so the Toltecs believe when you go down into the like to go downstairs, which in this dream you visit the underworld, which is really kind of true for, you know, this dreamer is like going down to the basement, it's going to the portal where the gates of hell are, and it's full of trickery and misillusions and misrepresentation. And this, like, you know, I also think if you're talking about toxic masculinity and coming into this next scene about tricksters and hell, I think too, there's like the collective energy too, and the patriarchy and toxic masculinity. Like, people get uncomfortable when they deal with their shadow. Like, if you were like people don't like to be told that they have this insecurity that they do, and they treat women like crap. They don't want that, and vice versa. And there's this, like, always when you talk about someone's shadow, there's a lot of like projection that happens, like a redirect, almost like a gaslighting. Like, it's like they take it off, like tricksters, right? The trickster energy of like, that's not me. And then pointing fingers at something else and laying blame somewhere else, right? And then you see this actually in the dreamer, where she immediately says, remember, this place is full of tricksters. No one go off alone. And then she falls for the exact like shifting of this. And this is her personal shadow too, because the private that runs off is female and going to the ladies' room. And so she runs off after this person goes off alone. And this is, I think, telling the dreamer, like, even though it's normal to have this toxic masculinity and patriarchal collective energy that makes fun of women and can't hold your own weapon and kind of makes it like the butt of jokes, even though it's normal, it's not okay. And even though it might not be worth your time, don't get swayed. Don't let your personal shadow sway you to be redirected to something that actually isn't worth your time, right? Like, so bathrooms are usually where we do our business. It's private, right? So there's like behind closed doors. I would say that the vacant building represents like a new area of life. And sometimes, I honestly like feel like that maybe it's telling you to like get out of those places, like get away from the places that are full of that like misogyny, sexism and stuff like that maybe there's like a new place because restaurants, you go for like socialism, like socializing and nourishment for your body, right? Like you go there to eat. And the basement of the restaurant would probably house like the extra food and leftovers and stuff like that. So I feel like maybe this like vacant building might be like a new place that you haven't explored. But there's might be like a fear, right? Because underneath this restaurant is the portal to hell. And but I also think that it's like, don't fall for the tricks. Like don't end up quitting a job. Like, say if this is your job, right? So that's military gear, you're going to quit your job because there's so much sexism and you deserve more, and you're starting to know your worth and you're confident and you don't want to spend your time in it. And then you quit your job. And then you fall for the same tactics and like the same toxic work environment, and you end up in the same boat as you were before. I feel like this is what this is talking about. Like, know your worth, but like don't be misled. Don't be misled into this distortion, right? By going off alone, right? So like, I feel like if you're going to go into a new job, say this is about job, right? I would say it's probably about a job. But, maybe the dreamer can comment on this, but later. But like, if this is a new job, you might have the feeling of like you're all alone. And this is what like toxic masculinity and misogyny kind of do, is like that, like the collective shadow and fear really makes it feel like you have to do everything alone. And like, the one great thing about feminine energy, it's very tribal, it's very community based, it's very circular and like higher viewpoint, like pulled back for like a bigger picture, whereas like the masculine is more like straight, linear. I don't want to say selfish, because it's not just selfish, but like it's like very I focused, ego driven, whereas like I'm doing this in like forceful, one way, my way, this is the way it goes, I'm not emotional, these kind of things. Like that's like the narrative of that. But like when like feminine like have a better like the pull back and not like be so honed into alone. So like it's the collective shadow is like kind of breaking you down and telling you that you're not good enough for a specific job because of toxic masculinity, misogyny, sexism, and you quit and you go into another field, you might be like kind of tricked by your own antics that like you have to do it alone, which is this, right? This very narrow, you become this collective shadow because you like are so focused on doing alone and like being alone that like inevitably those things that you're wanting to do become so overwhelming that like you inevitably end up like harming yourself the way that the masculine collective does, right? That you're singled out and you're not good enough because you're feminine and energy. And I think that this is like the second part of this is like, don't be fooled by your own antics and become what you actually hated in your previous job by doing things very like zoned in, focused on things that are very ego based, and rather than zooming out and seeing tribal, like seeing the bigger picture, right? And I think too, this is warning. It's like the red lights are flashing. It's warning you, like, don't fall, don't fall for the same bullshit that has been given to you and played out to you in this previous scene. But, and it distorts the real reality, right? And you fall for it and you follow it, right? But then when you finally realize it's illusion, you realize that you're all alone. But miraculously, when you come out of this, and I think this is true for a lot of people, that if you find yourself in like a very blinders on, straight line, focus this way, and you kind of have that awareness, pull back for a little bit. It's okay. It's not about second guessing yourself or not trusting yourself. It's about pulling back and seeing like, okay, is this really the direction that I need to be going on? How does this help people? How is this good for the collective? Pull back and then go in again. There's nothing wrong with having this masculine energy. And I don't like think that it should be hating on masculine energy, but masculine energy can be very destructive if it just keeps going without ever pulling back and saying, am I going in the right way? Like, I know like when I'm in my masculine and I'm going towards something, if I've gone too far and then I come out, a lot of times, even when I know that I've gone in the direction for too long, and then I realize my aim is wrong, I don't want to let go. I want to keep going. I just want to be like, I'm going to finish this and then I'll start over. But it's like, because I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to have wasted all this time and energy and resources in this one direction. But that's what happens when you get blinders on and you go, 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 go. You kind of, when you do wake up and come out of it, you might even be like, shit, like I should have like come out of this a little bit sooner so that I could have like course corrected to a direction. And that's kind of what the feminine energy does. It pulls back and sees the all encompassing and starts asking the questions, not in an accusatory way of like, you shouldn't be doing that, but it's like, well, who is this helping? Are you in the wrong, is there adjustments? Is there ways that you can, ebb and flow? Is there a way to like course correct? Or is this exactly what we need to do? And then keep going. That's kind of what the two need to be kind of balanced out. And I feel like that's kind of what this is alluding to, is that this collective shadow brings us to a point where we're singled out. We leave the situation and then we almost fall for the same bullshit, but our own, right? Like our own stuff, because we've been trained by the collective in this one scenario. And now we're coming into the next part where we're alone and we think that we have to do it alone. And that's not true. Like, and so again, this talks about how this previous situation kind of can distort the things that we know. And so it's very easy to like fall for it and perpetuate the same hurt and pain that we've learned previously, even though we've gotten away from it. And this is why healing is so important. And so I think that warning is basically like, don't fall for that path. So then once the dreamer realizes they've fallen for the illusion, they follow this private into the bathroom, they realize it's illusion. They feel stupid. There's a stupidity, and I think this is just reminding us that like, it's okay if you've fallen for some trickery. Like there's nothing wrong with falling for trickery, but like once you've done it, like it's okay to like be wrong. It's okay to understand that like you've grown and you've learned from your mistakes, because when we feel like we've made a mistake and we can't admit that we're wrong, and we see this a lot today in our police force, is that they make these mistakes, but instead of saying they're wrong, they just keep perpetuating to see if like force will like change the situation. And because of that, force inevitably hurts more and does more damage. That's what happens when we don't like admit that like our shadow, we've been tricked by the collective or by like ignorance, which is until we can't change things that we don't know. And so it's okay if we've made a mistake. And I think this is telling us like, that's what happens. It's like, you're not the only one. And so it's a labyrinth. We get trapped in this labyrinth that just feels like we can't get out of it. And then when the dreamer gets back to the gates of hell, the men are all confused and forgot the mission. And I feel like this is what happens. Like, I think this is a telling sign of that. Like, it's telling you that if you have a mission, if you have orders, if you know the direction you're going in, the dreamer probably has clarity of what they're doing, right? Fighting the good fight in this case, that like pulling back, and reminding yourself of like, if you've forgotten, because you're so blind or focused, your mission and what you're doing, pull back, right? And see what happens. Because when we're in, like, I feel like when you're in that blinders, sometimes we start to hate. We got some jealousy, we got some fear, we're doing comparison, we're resentful. We get so focused and we start to make force. We try to force it, and then we make mistakes, and then we try to like fix those mistakes in a hurried manner. But a lot of times that causes more confusion, more problems. And basically it causes you to forget the bigger picture here, the reason why, right? If you have a reason why, you're going to go a lot further than if you just have a what and a how. If you want a good book on that, that's Simon Sinek's book called Start With Why. It's a pretty good one. But that's kind of like what I feel like it is. And like, it's not fun to be like following sheep around. Like, that's not your job. And if you're following in footsteps and you're kind of perpetuating the harm that's been done to you, it's time to pull back and like deconstruct. And when you're about to open this door, there's a hand that closes and blocks your airway. So when we talk about a specific area that's like linked to chakras, I would say this is about self-expression. This is about who you are as a human and expressing yourself like through your voice, maybe, especially standing up in that injustice and speaking out against the hatred and the fear and the jealousy and the resentment that kind of boils up from the collective, right? And that can boil up from your own personal shadow, because, you know, when we are born into a society that has hatred and jealousy and comparison and racism and bigotry and patriarchy and, did I say racism? It's just double racism, triple racism, bigotry and homophobia and that kind of stuff. Like, and then we grow up, and then so we're in that society. We ourselves will have those things, and that we have to pull back and like look at it and deconstruct that stuff. And then on top of that, you have your own personal community, right? The homes that you grew up in, the areas that you grew up in. If they are also filled with those kind of things, you're also going to have that in there. And then on top of that, you have yourself, your friends, what you consume, whether it's media or books or anything like that. Like, you're like, that's like these areas. So depending on what you are and how you're working on it, like you can't you can't heal in the environment that you were broke in. So you have to get out of that environment, but then you also have to work to like heal the bigger community and the bigger societies, because it's a systemic issue. And so like, yes, it's important that you deconstruct, but like, even if you're deconstructing, it's going to be a continuous process, because you might be still in a community or a household or a family that aren't doing the work. And then we're in a society that's based on all of those things. And so I think this is telling us like, it's a very collective dream for the dreamer, that the collective is very affecting, but at the same time, like, don't fall for the traps. Like if you're deconstructing your life and like learning things through like getting kind of closing, like, right, the whole point of the dream is like, you've got to close the portal to hell, like close off this like hatred, fear, jealousy, resentment that's bubbling up. If you're deconstructing that, one, definitely get out of the situation that's causing that, but also know that like you have that in you as much as you deconstruct. This is a continuous process, and that it is seeping into other parts of your life, and that you can fall for perpetuating the harm that was caused to you, to other people, as well as to yourself. Like this is a big one for anyone who has been in abusive situations or racist situations or judgmental situations. You can inevitably, what that trauma does to you is that it can cause you to break down and inevitably treat yourself the way that you've been treated, because you don't know how to treat yourself any other way. I see it a lot in a lot of the clients that I have that are not like have a narcissistic abuse or complex PTSD, the way that their parents treated them. They are like, even you even see it in relationships, when you date people that like perpetuate the same kind, you kind of attract the same people. But this isn't just because that's how we grew up. It's a comfort thing. Like it's what we've only known, and we don't know outside of that. And so that requires healing. That like, if you want to check, I would say that some of your shadow work would be to like check, like, what has sexism, specifically this one is dealing with sexism, like done for your own mental state, and how does it make you feel like you have to do everything alone, that you can't really trust anyone to help you, or that you are being tricked into believing the same stuff, that you're maybe not worthy, or that kind of stuff. Stupidity, right? That was a word that came up. Doing this shadow work of like, how are you perpetuating this sexism to yourself? Like, are you believing that you aren't good enough, or that like maybe there's a dream that you have and that you haven't started it, or you haven't gone for it, and you believe that maybe you're not good enough, or that you have to like be. So sexism is a big thing that does one of the things where women have to be like overqualified to get paid what men get for like having potential. And so this might show up in your own personal shadow as maybe you're not reaching for the stars because you don't think that you're qualified, or that you don't have the right credentials or the ability, when really that's not the truth. You can be hired for potential, because that's what generally the masculine energies are being done. Like, you have to be twice as qualified. This also could go for the privilege of white versus people of color too. Names and stuff like that, you have to have like over qualifications instead of potential, or like, you know, that kind of thing. So it might be like good to look at how are you perpetuating the harm that has been done to you by believing that you're not qualified, believing that you're not good enough, believing that you can't start something, do your dream, reach for the stars, or moon, go shoot for the moon, that kind of thing, unless something else happens, like maybe the perfect weight, the way that you look, the way that you can't apply for your specific job because of whatever, or maybe you need to get more qualifications, maybe you need to go back to school, maybe like there's like might be a bunch of like questions that you have in there that are saying that I can't do this until this happens, which is placing things on hold. My thing is go for it. Quit your job. The way that I would see this is quit your job and shoot for the moon, and know that you're capable, and that you have been taught that you're maybe not as capable because that's what society has been telling you this entire time, is that you're not capable because you are stupid, or that you have fallen for the same, like you've been tricked. You have been tricked to perpetuate the same harm in this by yourself to yourself that the collective is doing to you as well, or that your previous jobs are doing to you, or that your community has done to you, or the society has done to you. So yeah, I think that that's basically what it is. I think that that's this self-expression. You are being shut down by your like two things. One, the societal pressure, the societal sexism and patriarchy and misogyny and sexism and that kind of thing, and then also on top of that, that has created your own personal shadow to make you believe the same about yourself, so that you're not actually doing the things that you love to do and want to do and dream to do. Let's talk about my workbook. You can find it on Amazon. It's in the show notes. It's called Dream Work, the Dreamer's Workbook for Expanding into the Highest Expression of Who You Really Are. Not only do you get how I interpret the dream interpretation guide about how I do it, you get practices, rituals for dreaming better, more vividly, with intention. You get 30 days of journal pages and the breakdown sheets. That's not all. You get 3 practices of dreams that come with the breakdown sheet, and you get to practice it, what you just learned. There's 3 examples. Not it. I got a bunch of shadow work prompts that you can use with your dreams. And if you're curious about how I would have dissected or analyzed the dreams from the practices, I even left versions of them in there. And even better, it's a picture book. There are beautiful pictures in this generated. Such a divine creation. I just love it. And honestly, it's just such a good book. I've had so many people talk about how wonderful it is and easy to read. Super awesome guide. It's available on Amazon, in the show notes, in the description. And I really put my heart and soul into it. It's the first time I've ever written a book, and I am just so grateful to be able to teach you all how I do dream interpretation that has transformed my life and expedited my personal development like no other. And so I highly recommend it. There is hard, soft, and Kindle versions. So hope you like it. Thanks for listening to Dark Moon Chiron. I hope you found what you're looking for and enjoyed the ride. If you'd like to share your dream adventures with the world, please head over to our website, darkmoonchiron.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, there are multiple ways to donate and support us. You can find them in the show notes. All content shared in this podcast is copyrighted by Dark Moon Chiron Incorporated 2022. All rights reserved. None of its content can be used without prior authorization. So until next time, dream big and be wild.